Hey guys, it's Savannah here to give you a brief overview of a great man named Professor John Hattie. Now, Professor John Hattie is a professor of education. He is originally from New Zealand, but he is currently the director of the Education Research Institute at the University of Melbourne in Australia. So some might say that he is the Hugh Jackman of the education world. At least that's what I like to say. Anyways, Professor Hattie is best known for his research in the concept of visible learning. So according to John Hattie, the visible learning and teaching occurs when teachers see learning through the eyes of their student. Instead of through our teaching eyes, we're looking at it through student eyes because, we've all been students before. And we're using that to help students become their own learners. So in a way, visible learning is when students become the teachers. They are their own learners. They don't always need us to hold their hand the whole way. And this is how to get them to that point. So John Hattie's research on visible learning is all based around his meta study that he did. So he did a study with over 80 million students. So he knows what he's doing. It's not just a couple hundred, 80 million students with over originally 800 teaching and learning techniques. And then eventually now I think he's up to about 1,200 teaching and learning techniques. So after all that, he's kind of gotten down to a science of what is and is not effective when it comes to student learning. And this science that he has come up with, he has put into a chart that is called Hattie's Effective Size Chart, also known as the Hattie Ranking. So that chart is made up of 252 factors that can influence student learning and how much they impact it. So Hattie gave all those factors a ranking. All 252 have a ranking shown on this chart from most to least effective. It keeps going, guys. It's huge, then all the way into negatively effective. So to read this chart, it's pretty easy. Let's go to a random one, pick something, and you look over and you look at its numbers. So whatever it is, so what am I looking at here? But web-based learning has a 0.18 ranking of effectiveness. You're probably wondering, what the heck does 0.18 mean? Is that effective? Is it not effective? Well, it's all based, sorry, I dropped my iPad, I'm a klutz. It's all based around what we call our hinge point, or the average, which is 0.4. So this is kind of that chart just blown up. I just only picked 5 examples instead of all 252 to make it a little easier to read. So the hinge point, 0.4, is what Hattie found to be the average effectiveness of learning in his ranking. So if something's not necessarily effective or ineffective, it's just kind of average, it's just kind of there. It got a ranking of 0.4, just like goal commitment. If something got a higher rating than 0.4, like classroom discussion, which ranks at 0.82, then it is above average in its effectiveness. So it has a very positive impact on the students. If something is below 0.4, like some people might be surprised to know homework only ranks at 0.29, pretty significantly below 0.4. That is below average. So it doesn't have that great of an effect on student learning and on visible learning and visible teaching. You could also go all the way down to the lowest, and you actually get into the negatives. Our lowest one on the list, and this is of all 252, is ADHD. So students who are suffering from ADHD, that's a negative 0.9 effect on their learning, guys. It is so hard for them to become their own learners. But if we as teachers use the things that are positive to help them learn, then we could eventually outweigh that negative effect and hopefully help those kids become their own teachers. Now, the most effective student method that is actually above 1, if something becomes above 1 in its ranking, that means that it's an extremely positive effect. Like, it's awesome. Number 1, ranking at 1.33, is self-reported grades. So, self-reported grades, which also can be called student expectations. Hattie actually said that if he could rename this study years later, he would call this student expectations instead of self-reported grades, is what a student expects or predicts of themselves. This is the number 1 thing. So the reason this is so great is because no one knows how well you're going to do better than yourself. I can't run a mile. I have people around me who are like, sure, you could run a mile. You totally could. Here, watch, you can do it. I can't run a mile. I can run like a 1/10 of a mile, and I could tell you that. I can tell you I can make it a 1/10 of a mile, and that is my realistic expectation. If I want to exceed that expectation, I might go for like 2/10 of a mile. It's not that great, but it's something. But I can tell you that, and someone else might not be able to tell you that. If I walked into a random room with a random new person, like students do at the beginning of the year with a new teacher, how is that teacher to know if that student can run a mile, if that student can do multiplication, if that student can figure out 100 problems in a minute? There's no way. So self-reported grades, or students predicting their own achievement, is one of the best ways for them to succeed, because then they tell the teacher, this is what I expect of myself, and then the teacher is able to push that student to get past what they expect themselves. Like I said, I think that I can run about a 1/10 of a mile, but maybe if I tell that teacher I can only run a 1/10 of a mile, then that teacher could say, hey, today let's try, instead of 0.1 miles, 0.12 miles. And the next day, let's try 0.14 miles, and slowly get me up until eventually maybe I could run half a mile. Maybe I could run a full mile. But that teacher wouldn't have been able to help me if right off the bat she had said, no, go run a mile. That wouldn't have been helpful at all. So we need self-reported grading so that these students can tell you, this is what I expect of myself. This is what I can do. And then as an educator, we have to be able to take that and turn it into more. We have to tell them, you can do a little more than that. But we have to be able to give them that push. And then once students outperform their own expectations, they gain so much confidence, then they can open any door to learning. Suddenly learning is fun because they're doing better than they thought they could. Instead of being told, no, you should be at this level in math. I should be at level 5 in math, and then I take my test and I'm only at a level 3 in math. I feel really bad about myself and I don't want to learn anymore. But if I come in and say, I'm about a level 3 math, and then I score and I get a level 4 math, I'm so excited. I love math. It's the coolest thing ever now. So for students to do well and to gain that confidence, you need to let them tell you what they expect of themselves, and then as a teacher, push them past that. And that is so possible and so great for student success. And then, like I said, it opens all of these doors. Improvement leads to happy and well-performing students. If you want to learn more about self-reported grades or John Hattie's meta studies, or if you want to view that effect size chart more close up, because like I said, 252 items, if you have a question on something and whether or not it's effective, I can almost guarantee it is on that chart. So to find that, you can find it at visible-learning.org. Don't forget that dash, visible.learning.org. That's where I found all of my research, and it's where you will find so much more. John Hattie is amazing, like I said. Hugh Jackman of the education world. Go check out his research. Have a great day, guys. Bye.